Right, we're giving you a live look now at Washington, D.C., where former U.S. President Donald Trump has just entered a not guilty plea to 4 counts of attempting to overturn the 2020 presidential election. His arraignment is currently underway. He was answering questions from the judge just moments ago. U.S. Special Counsel Jack Smith also in the courtroom. He led the investigation. This is, of course, the 3rd criminal case involving the former president. He is facing charges in 2 other criminal cases. But again, he has entered a not guilty plea. We are keeping a close eye on the latest developments as they come out, and we'll keep you updated. But for now, let's go to Judge Stephen Haberfeld, U.S. political analyst and former assistant Watergate special prosecutor. Thank you so much, first of all, Stephen, for taking the time and for hanging out with us as we are waiting for that not guilty plea to come in. It is what we expected to hear from Trump.
My pleasure, and thank you and your staff. It's really been great working with you so far.
And Stephen, no surprise that Trump has said that has pleaded not guilty here. Talk to us a little bit more about the 4 charges that he is facing and how you expect his defense and his team will continue to respond to what the prosecutors throw at them.
I think you have already outlined for your viewers what the 4 counts are, but at their very core, they involve a conspiracy, actually 3 conspiracies alleged, for the purpose of obstructing official proceedings of Congress and for denying people meaningful voting rights, particularly the counting of voting rights, and conspiracy to defraud the U.S. government, all of which basically can be wrapped up in an attempt by the former president and his co-conspirators to overturn the 2020 presidential election and to prevent the peaceful transfer of power, as has been the history of the United States in an unbroken chain since George Washington almost 250 years ago.
Stephen, the prosecution has definitely a large indictment, 45 pages in this indictment. What are they going to have to prove, and how challenging is it going to be to prove beyond a reasonable doubt?
What they're going to have to prove are essentially a couple of elements, and then we can get into the defenses that you mentioned. But essentially, and it really starts out in a wonderfully written, which I strongly recommend, concise, very readable speaking indictment, that there was a conspiracy based on what I would call the Trump big lie, that the 2020 election was a rigged and stolen election, and that he was going to do whatever he could to, with his co-conspirators, overturn the results of that election, which was a valid, free, and fair election by all the facts which are available, and to take certain actions which were multi-layered, multi-state, directed from the center, and directed by the people close in with Trump, who were in a very close circle of trust by him to coordinate all of these things, such as the fake electors, the pressuring of the vice president, the decapitation of the Department of Justice, and things like that, all of which were orchestrated by people and involved this former president. What needs to be proven at the core is the intent, the corrupt intent of this president to take those actions in violation of the statutes, which the indictment, which is a speaking indictment, details that this former president lost the election, knew that he lost the election, but nevertheless took all of these actions in order to retain power by all of these things that I've referred to and more, which was in effect a palace coup d'etat by the former president to remain in power and to prevent the transfer of power to the newly elected president, Joe Biden.
Stephen, one thing I did want to ask you is whether or not you think we'll see people who have spoken out against Donald Trump, who, in this case, who were members of his former administration, whether you think we'll see them testifying on the witness stand. I'm thinking about Mike Pence.
I think that in recent days has become increasingly to the fore, that notwithstanding his attempts to prevent himself from being subjected to questioning, once the courts decided that he had to, he went into the grand jury and turned over notes, all of which have now been put into this speaking indictment, which I again commend to your viewers for reading, including where Trump, in attempting to pressure the vice president, who's going to be an important witness now, as made clear by the indictment, where Pence basically said that he did not have the constitutional authority to do what the president asked him to do, to essentially not validate, certify the election, and to basically delay and disrupt it by not counting votes and sending things back to the states. In response to that, Trump said at the time, and I believe it was on about January 3rd, before the January 6th, he said, "You're too honest." And I think that will go to show the importance of both the testimony going to the knowledge and intent of the president that he lost, and the attempt to overturn the election via the vice president when everything else up to that point had failed.
Judge, we do have to leave it there. Judge Stephen Haberfeld, former Assistant Watergate Special Prosecutor, thank you so much again for hanging out with us, for waiting to appear with us, and for sharing your insights as well.
Thank you. My pleasure.